This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
Signs that it could be time to fire your financial advisor.
Ooh.
It's a sign of the times.
Them's fighting words. Them's fighting words.
I'm Heather Branch. This is Jon Hicks, financial advisor, founder of J. Hagan Capital. We are here to share with you. I'm just the person that helps with the microphone. John, you're the one with all the degrees.
Oh, come now. You're the brains of the entire operation.
Fake news. I have 0 degrees in finance. If I say anything that sounds at all advisory-like in any part of anything you hear me say, please disregard it entirely. John is the one who knows what he's talking about here, ladies and gentlemen. RetirementSolutionShow.com is the website and where you can go to begin the conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital about the many questions that you might have. If it just begins with, I've got a guy, but I don't know, do I need to switch? How do I begin to figure that out? They can show you what you need to be looking for. We're going to speak to that here a little bit as well. We've also got links posted in the show notes, or again, it's retirementsolutionshow.com. I bring all of this up because the conversation about football coaches this season has been crazy. Am I wrong?
No, it's been a crazy year. NFL, absolutely. There's all kinds of people looking like they're going to be on the coaching carousel.
It's happening, yeah.
The college football, too. I mean, there have been some crazy and outlandish moves across the entire football world landscape. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that may have different positions next year.
I was listening just this past week to Terry Miners talking on HAS in the afternoon about all the college football coaches. I went to Virginia Tech. We started the season kicking our coach to the curb. Brent Pry is looking for work. So I'm in the mix of it, but it's crazy. It's not just college football. It's the NFL too. We're mid-NFL season and several head coaches are in the hot seat. They're in danger of losing their jobs. Of course, with football, it's a little bit more in our face, right? We see the factors that come into play. There was a poor start to a season when there was high expectations for that team. There is a consistent losing record. It's been a while since the team has been to the playoffs.
Sure.
Just regular scores on a board. Very much in your face and easy to understand when it's going well or not. Now, thinking about having a financial advisor, a lot of us, for obvious reasons, would look to that person as a retirement coach of sorts.
Sure.
And how do we know if it's actually going well? Because financial ease is a real thing. A lot of us might say, I don't know, I think it's going well. So this is where I want to ask you, are there signs that we can look for that say, well, it might be time to quote unquote fire your financial coach and move on to somebody else?
You know, it's interesting. So when you're kind of looking, NFL coaches or college coaches and financial advisors, they're really kind of interesting how they're kind of correlated when you kind of think about it. So when most of us are working and we're setting money aside, we typically want a growth-based advisor. Now, to me, this is kind of like the coaches that basically they win all those regular season games. For the longest time, it would be like Bill Belichick. Or back in the day, it may have been Madden, was a great coach for the Raiders back in the day, right? Yeah. They just win a lot of games, and that's great to get you to that point. Now, when we get to the point where we've been saving all this money, and this would be like the equivalent of the playoffs, right? Or the college playoffs or whatever it is, we probably need a guy that can win the big games. This is one of the biggest things about Franklin, who was recently fired from Penn State midseason. This is one of the greatest football coaches of a long time. Now, here's the problem, though. Penn State didn't like the fact that he couldn't win the big games. He couldn't win the big games against the people that they wanted to beat, and they kicked him to the curb. Now, this guy turned Vanderbilt into a college football juggernaut. They were always the doormat of the SEC, and the guy not only did an incredible job there, he went to Penn State and won a ton of games, but he didn't win the big ones. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about when we have all this money saved and we have a financial advisor and he can somehow get us there. But unfortunately, somehow we don't feel like we can be retired.
Made it to the Super Bowl and we don't feel ready to play.
It's like the Buffalo Bills. They made it to the Super Bowl how many times, and how many times have they never won? And when it comes to retirement, we get one shot.
Yeah.
If we run out of money or we can't create the income we want to live the way we want, then unfortunately, that's kind of like losing, because we either have to work longer than we want to, or we can't live off of the amount of money that we would like to, or we just don't quite have enough. And is that coach's fault? Not necessarily. This is often when we want a different coach, right?
Yep.
So I'm a Kentucky basketball fan and I root for Louisville too. I'm not a bandwagon jumper. It's just they both have great programs, but for different reasons, right? John Calipari somehow got the best talent in the world, but I'll be danged if he could not win the big games. The last big game he won was in 2012, and that's why he was gone.
Yep.
Now, they didn't technically fire him. He left, but the point is that UK fans were just mad. The guy could not win the big game. Basically, he couldn't get him through the retirement process. That's the whole point. So many of us, as we're growing our money, we want the guys that can give us growth and opportunities. That's really great. But once we're thinking 3 to 5 years for retirement, or this is when you're playing, say, oh my gosh, we got a winning record. We have a shot to really not only go through the wild card, we could get to the Super Bowl. Do we have the right coaches that can win the big game? Do we have the right talent? Do we need to put different players on the field? Do we need to make some last heroic trades in the tail end of the season so that we can make sure we win? This is often what I'm talking to folks and say, hey, even if you've been doing it on your own, when you're 3 to 5 years from retirement, this may be an opportunity where you actually start interviewing people to find out, do they have what it takes to get you not just to, but through the next phase, through the retirement.
Okay.
And it's kind of like if someone ever climbs a mountain, if you ever climbed Everest, you typically have two guides. You really do.
Okay.
You have the guy that gets you up the mountain, and you have a completely different guide to get you down, because these skills are completely different. The terrain is different.
Yeah.
The talent levels and what we need to be talented in are different. Plus, when you've gotten to the top, you're tired. You are so tired to come down. You have to exercise more caution. So often when I'm talking to people about financial advisors, say, hey, the guy's been really good. We were in NVIDIA and we were in Facebook and we were in all this stuff that went through the roof. It's great. It's like, awesome. How's he going to create your income plan? How are you being tax efficient? What does your CPA say about that? How can we be certain that if anything happens to you, that your surviving spouse won't have to sell some of this stuff and put her in a worse situation, and on top of that, potentially have a higher tax bill? All of those things are things we didn't have to worry about when we were just making money. Basically, that first coach that got us up there. But now everything changes. We got to figure out, can we develop the right amount of income? Do we have the right amount of protection to protect all that money? Or could it potentially be gone from a market calamity, or we're over concentrated in too much of one type of asset, or we're not diversified properly, or it can't create income, or it's in the wrong bucket and we have to spend twice as much money in taxation because it's just in the wrong bucket. All those things often require different skill sets. So that's where I would say, maybe when you're getting ready to really consider 3 to 5 years for retirement, maybe you need to hire or consider hiring a different coach. It doesn't mean you could have the greatest guy in the world, but he may not be the right one to get you down the mountain or get you to that Super Bowl game, but have a real great chance of winning.
Looking again for signs, for indicators that it might be time to switch. Perhaps somebody says to you, they just bump into you. You're at a party for the girls, and somebody says to you, John, I've got this guy. How do I know if he's the right guy? What are 3 questions that I should ask this guy that could tip me off that it's time to move on?
Yeah, so if you have done a great job saving, so if you've saved, let's say, $750,000 or more, and you own mutual funds, you do not have the right guy. Because if you have saved that kind of money, you are paying way too much in fees without question, whether you pay him anything or not. Mutual funds are unbelievably expensive compared to other alternatives. That's number one. Number two, they're tax inefficient. You cannot do anything to hedge a phantom tax bill from a mutual fund if you have that in taxable accounts. As a matter of fact, we just had a gentleman that came in. He had these mutual funds for 25 years. And he had about $4 million in mutual funds, and about $3 million were gains. Here's the problem. He has to pay taxes every year, Heather, on capital gains, and he has to pay taxes on income that those mutual funds spend off. And in 2022, he was down 21% and still had to pay capital gains and taxes on the distributions of income, even though he lost 21% in that account. Why? It's inefficient. He had way too much money. He should not have had mutual funds at all. Now, we can dismantle that. Even if someone has a $3, $4, $5, $20 million tax bill or $20 million of capital gains sitting in those investments, we now can use the new Trump tax legislation, the OBA, we can use that to diffuse and dismantle those tax obligations. Sometimes we can do it over 1 year. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3, but we can typically get down to single digit tax rates and tax expenditures, even if you have huge bills. So for me, the number one thing, you own the wrong assets, and expensive ones or tax inefficient ones are the telltale sign that you're dealing with probably an unskilled advisor. That's number one. Number two, If you constantly say, hey, yeah, but where's my income going to come from? If I decide to retire, I'm going to get 50 grand from Social Security and I'm going to get $5,000 in interest from my bank accounts. Where's the other 50 grand that we want to spend? Where's it going to come from? And if he says, hey, we're just going to pull 3 or 4% a year from this diversified, high quality portfolio, guys, you need to have a written income plan, an actual definitively, granularly written income plan to say what exact asset in what exact bucket is going to pay you in years 1, 2, 3, in years 4 through 20. And then assuming that we live longer than that, how can we make sure we're keeping up with inflation for years 20 plus? Okay.
Yep.
Those are big ones. Income plans are huge because if we don't have the right income plan, chances are we're being tax inefficient and we could potentially run out.
Okay.
And that's what no one wants to do.
Okay.
The third thing and the last thing is if they are not working with a CPA, working with your CPA, if they don't have CPAs on their staff and you've saved $1 million or more, you are being underserved. We think it is unbelievably important when your largest expense over 20 to 35 years of retirement is going to be taxation from the federal government. And you look at the fact that your Social Security may be taxed, all of your income may be taxed. All of the money that comes out of your tax deferred accounts are going to be ordinary income, which is the most oppressive tax rate in the entire IRS structure. When you look at that and they're not helping you do that, you are being underserved. You can get a skilled fiduciary advisor who has CPAs and tax attorneys on staff, just like our firm, and potentially pay less money than what you're currently paying. And people are just unaware of that.
Yeah.
I almost laugh when people say, yeah, they're with Ken Fisher. The guy charges 1.65% if you've got a $2 million account. That is absurd. They give no tax guidance. They have no CPAs that work for their firm. They have no tax attorneys that work for them. They don't give any estate planning advice. And yet they charge a most exorbitant rate that I've ever seen. And yet people go to that because the guy spends a fortune in marketing. You can do better. You deserve better if you've done a great job saving and you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And what you want is protection, income, tax strategy, wealth transfer, estate design, and healthcare plans. As long as you have those, you'll probably win.
If you're working with an advisor, ask him these 3 questions. What am I invested in? If it's a lot of mutual funds, you might want to rethink who you're working with. Also, what is my income plan for retirement? Where will it come from? And what is my tax plan? And if you cannot get a clear, direct answer, it might be time to look for a new financial coach, a new advisor to help you in the planning process. As Jon was pointing out, a lot of great financial advisors out there helping you through the growth years, but a retirement advisor is such a different ballgame. This is what Jon and his team are doing every single day in the office. They're here for you as well to walk you through what should be a happy and exciting time of your life. Let's work to ensure that your financial plan is going to rise up to meet you in this space. RetirementSolutionShow.com is where to go to start the conversation with Jon and his team. We've also got links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there. Let's get started. RetirementSolutionShow.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting RetirementSolutionRadio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.